Hi guys, it's Ben from T-Rex Space Station. How's everybody doing? Sorry I've not posted a video in a little while. Life's got in the way, I was a little bit busy. In the background is Lotus Turbo 2 Challenge. And you can see the box just there. Really fun game that I've been playing loads of this week. Very challenging actually. Just before I get on to what I want to talk about today, there's a few little pickups that I was going to show you guys. Now in the hospital where I work, they sometimes have what I would say little nanas that set up these stalls, and they sell a sweet collection of like knitted things and postcards and stuff. But every now and then, when I walk past, I spot a pile of games. And last week they had a pile of games there and I found myself some reasonable bargains. So these games that I picked up were all either £1 or £2 each, which I think is a real steal. And I had to swoop in there and get them before anybody else got their claws on them. So the first one is Super Mario Sunshine on the GameCube. It's complete in box and in relatively good nick as £1. I really didn't get into the GameCube when it was originally around. I just didn't have it, didn't really know many people who owned it either. And so it was a kind of a system that I missed out on. But obviously the Wii is backwards compatible and it is possible to play these games on there. And I just very slowly bought a couple of select titles here and there that I want to check out. Things like Sonic Adventure 2 and the Double Dash Mario Kart games, just because those games are always going to be fun, aren't they, really? Here's another one I got for £1, Star Fox Adventures. No manual in this one, unfortunately, but this is a game that I was aware of, and I think it was Swifto that did a video of it. I really like the idea of kind of a fully 3D adventure game in similar style maybe to a Zelda kind of game with puzzles and combat and collectibles, but with the Star Fox universe. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the only 3D Star Fox adventure game that we got. I'm not sure there was ever another one, was there? Unless one came out on the Wii U or something, or definitely not the Wii, but maybe the Wii U that I missed. And when I saw the gameplay footage of it that Swifto did, I thought it looked really decent actually, so I would quite like to have a dabble with that. And it looks like a pretty substantive game, well worth £1 anyway. And I mostly have all of the Wii games that I want, but I had heard of this one before, Mario Strikers. Basically, it's a Mario Universe football game, which sounds like a lot of fun. It's a 4-player game. I did watch some videos of it on YouTube a couple of weeks ago and thought it looked quite interesting actually. We've had loads of sports games, Mario Tennis and stuff, but not often that you see a sort of Mario or Sonic or whatever universe in football. So I thought, yeah, that is one game that I've kind of been keeping an eye out for. So for a couple of quid, absolute steal. Then there's a game that I got off eBay which wasn't so cheap, the Ren and Stimpy show, Stimpy's Invention. This is one that one of my best friends back in the day used to have. I never had it actually, but I used to borrow it from him. And the reason why I like this game so much is because it is one of the most fun 2-player co-op games on the system, if you ask me. And me and my brother really enjoyed playing this one quite a lot. We completed it a couple of years ago, but that was using emulators, and I really wanted to have an actual hard copy in my collection to enjoy when I want to. It's got the cool Nickelodeon little logo there. I used to love Nickelodeon stuff. And what I was thinking I would do is maybe have a chance to do a co-op gameplay and complete the game on the channel, which might be fun. You guys might like to see that, because I've been feeling like single-player gameplay, it's a little bit dull, doesn't it? And so I thought maybe it would be fun to play something in a co-op setting. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled, if that's what I'm saying, for that one. Now, one of the YouTube channels that I like to watch, one of my friends, Mel, recently was talking about getting rid of his PS4, and that he didn't really like this generation of consoles. PS4 didn't do it for him, and he was going to stick solely with retro stuff. And there were quite a few comments on his video that was very interesting. Most people kind of were like me, sort of saying the PS4 was a great system. And with me, I'm almost 50-50 down the middle, split between playing retro stuff and playing modern stuff. I really do kind of go between the two, and I actually quite like playing a quick blast of a retro game sort of as a bit of a break from one of the bigger sprawling, you know, PS4 games. I kind of use it as a little bit of a respite game just to keep things going. But it got me thinking, like, there are some advantages, and I think a lot of people think there are advantages to how things used to be back in the day, to retro games, compared to the modern games now. And I'd be interested to hear your thoughts, guys, on what is it that you think is, say, an advantage of old school games, or what is it that draws you to old school games over, say, the modern ones? And obviously there are arguments the other way, but we can come onto that maybe another time. And, you know, it got me thinking a little bit about this. And I think the first thing that I was thinking was that the old school games, the packaging to me, the boxes and the manuals mattered, and it feels much more like a collection. I've got all my Mega Drive games out on a shelf, that most of them complete in box. The art looks amazing, and there's actually a point to having the physical copies. And I feel like that's been slowly degraded over time. I talked about Spyro Reignited Collection. The Reignited Collection, it's got the original one game on there, you've got to download the other two. But say with PS4 games these days, you open up the box and there isn't actually anything in there. There's a disc, and there's not a manual though, there's like a thin pamphlet or something. It feels like it's just a bit of a shell, a bit of a token. And it is convenient having digital downloads, and I have gone very much into digital downloads on the PS4. But I think part of the reason why I've pushed that way is because I don't really feel like there is much incentive to have the boxes. And I think that the physicality of old school games is something that will always appeal to somebody like me. Especially because the box art on Mega Drive games, the manuals and everything is so awesome and so collectible. But I think the other side of this is about what's been happening with modern games in terms of unfinished games getting released. Back in the day, you got the game and you had the package. It wasn't rushed out, half finished. And day one patches and all that kind of stuff are becoming increasingly common now. And people are really, people have said their opinions on this a lot on YouTube. And I think it's just really frustrating to, how can that be that a game could come out so badly broken that it needs to have a day one patch, which is usually not like, 100 megabytes, we're talking like massive gigabyte overhauls of certain systems in the games. It doesn't make any sense to me, and it's super frustrating. It frustrates me that I don't have a complete game on the disc. I've got to download it all. Usually the game has the disc has a little bit of the game on it, they can download all the extra stuff. Or say, in the case of Spyro, only 1 out of 3 of the games that you're purchasing there are actually on the disc. So I think that the importance of the physicality of old school games is one of the things that draws me there, because of, not just because of how it looks, because of all that entails and means in terms of having the complete package. And the replayability. There is always that level of uncertainty about what will happen to server-based games in the future. Will you always own them? What if something happened to Steam, etc.? I don't worry about that so much now, but it is theoretically an issue. It is theoretically there in the back of your mind at times. It may not be permanent. It may not always be there. Who knows? Then other things, for me, are actually how old school games play. As I said, I've been playing lots of Lotus Turbo 2 Challenge, and I think this is a great game as an example of how old school games are. I've got a really tickly nose today, sorry. And the reason why I say that is because the game is balls hard, and it's really challenging, and it just drops you in there and is like, okay, off you go, enjoy yourself. There are only, as far as I know, 8 stages on this game. I've got up to stage number 6 or 7 now. And the way I had to do that was with sheer persistence, just playing the levels over and over again, trying to learn the best patterns, trying to figure out how to avoid the other cars, trying to do my best and actually just get into the challenge. And it encourages you to get good, as people say, like the Dark Souls games do. I know there are modern games that do this, but there's something about the old school games where it's about the challenge, it's about the skill. And to me, it goes back to a time when it encouraged you to have persistence and patience. I think, unfortunately, our attention spans have got very short these days. Partly because of the fact that we're saturated. Back in the day, I would only be able to buy one game every many months, and so you'd have to play it, and you'd have to get good at it, and you had to have that attention span. Nowadays, I think our attention spans are very short, and we flip between games, and I like to go back to these games and give them my full attention and try to imagine that it was the one game that I'd got for that 4 months, and play it as though it was that one game to get good at it. They're all kind of skill-based. They all require repetition, concentration and focus, and that's what I love about them. And I know that's been tapped into a lot with modern games. We have, particularly in terms of the indie scene, where people have focused on that. You know, even things like Super Meat Boy, ultra difficult games that require practice and skill. But I keep coming back to the old school games because they really did. They were the perfect examples of that, I think. They really were about persistence and practice, attention to detail, and not so much of the soft stuff, not so much of the tutorial stuff, not so much of the hand-holding, as I sometimes call it. And to me, that's just beautiful. Then, of course, there is the big nostalgia factor. I'm not so sure how relevant this one is anymore. And the reason why I say that is because, again, with the indie scene, there is a lot of sort of 8-bit style games coming out, but nevertheless, I think the nostalgia is still a big draw. It's the memories, it's the feeling as though you're going back into your childhood. Now, I was thinking a bit more about nostalgia, actually, because I think it's possible to be nostalgic playing a game that you've never played before, actually. I never played Lotus Turbo 2 Challenge when I was a kid. This is a game that I bought a few years back. It still makes me feel nostalgic, though, because of the hardware that I'm playing it on and because of the aesthetic. And I think there is a big nostalgia just in using these systems. Just in feeling the pad and the cartridge and all of that kind of process. And that's probably one of the biggest draws and the biggest advantages to retro gaming, and people are realizing that. That's why we've got so many of these you know, NES and SNES and PS1 minis coming out, because nostalgia is important to us. Nostalgia is kind of what drives a lot of us to keep going and keep buying games and just love that feeling of being in a little teleporter that takes you all the way back all those years to when you may have been a kid, or happier days, or whatever else. That's what it is. So I think those are a few of the big advantages to retro games for me. And I'm sure there will be many more that come up into my head after this video, but I'd like to know sort of your thoughts on this one. Are there particular things that draw you back to retro games, particular things that you think are better than the modern stuff? Let me know in the comments below, and I will post a link to Mel's original video also. Take care, guys, and I'll speak to you all soon. Bye.